Hi, my name is Eleanor Jones, and it's a joy to have you here. Welcome to the Heritage Gardens of Cold Spring. You are sitting in the foothills of the Blue Mountains, which you recognize. The Blue and Jonquil Mountains have just been named actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So this is a very important place with historic and botanical value. The Heritage Gardens was converted into a place for special events, for reading, relaxing, for artists in residence, for corporate events. So we've had weddings, we've had parties, we've had retreats, we've had teas, the gamut. I'd love to show you around the property. Please come with me. So we're standing here on the large barbecue, what we call the Grand Barbecue, which is the largest of the barbecues that was used for drying coffee. And you'll see it's a small reminder of the 18th century 300-acre coffee estate. There are several barbecues on the property. Each level area that you see is a former barbecue. And the archaeologists have indicated that this barbecue is a sign, this series of barbecues that are so well preserved is a sign of, or is an indication of the tremendous amount of coffee that was handled on this property here in the works. Each of the barbecues, you will also observe, has these cubby holes, and in those cubby holes they would store the coffee, drying it here on the barbecue, and then we'd store the coffee, or they used to store the coffee in those cubby holes. A barbecue is a flat area on which we dry produce. A significant part of the property is the stone wall. You will see each one of the levels has retaining walls, they're stone walls, and all of these walls were built in the 18th century, if you can imagine, and they're still standing. So it is a testament to the quality of workmanship in those days. Now, the walls, again, doing the history, we realized that the Irish were also famous for stone walls, and you have stone walls across Jamaica, which are found in some of the properties owned by Irish people. Our slaves, our slave history, we don't know much about slaves and coffee. We tend to associate our slave history with sugar plantations, but we also had slaves on the coffee estates. And the history tells us that at one time we had as many as 1,200 slaves on this property. May have been more, but that's what I have found to date. A part of the joy of the property is the peace, the tranquility, and the fact that you can really get in touch with yourself and escape. And I came across what is now being promoted as forest therapy, which I think is just a wonderful concept. And so I have borrowed it and plan to integrate it into this venue. And essentially, the forest therapy says you get in touch with the sounds of the forest, with the touch of the forest, the feel of the forest. So we're promoting here at Heritage Gardens peace, healing, and wellness. This aspect of the property is a small rustic wooden cottage, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and we host guests in this cottage. So the cottage is available for rent. Welcome to the cottage, and I'll just give you a glimpse of what it looks like. I had mentioned that the area is called Cold Spring, and the property is a Cold Spring estate, and the historic information, which I picked up 1776 writings, it was a remarkably cold and beautiful spring, you know, the water, and that it's the source of water on the property today because we have the spring. I tap the spring and then we pipe the water through the property. We come back here and you will see this old oven. This is the oven of yesteryear where you had the fire on the bottom and of course baking in there. The old brick oven, you know, the brick oven at Devon House. This is it. So it was part of the cooking. This property did not look like it does now, of course. As we said, it was 18th century and has been through many iterations. And certainly when I decided that I wanted to tell the story, a part of the story of the Blue Mountains, horticulture in the Blue Mountains, and coffee in the Blue Mountains, I worked on the gardens and so on. And the cottage itself, we think that initially, and certainly my colleagues who have been in the coffee business say they think that the caretaker, the overseer for the property, occupied that cottage because of where it sat overlooking the BBQs, because coffee was very valuable, so they had to oversee their assets to ensure it was protected. And we think though that that original cottage, which I have refurbished and expanded, was probably built right at the turn of the 20th century, so maybe like 1920s or something, because of the style of it. And before I refurbished the coffee, the caretaker's cottage, it had a connecting walkway to an old building where they used to have the kitchen, and the way it was done in those days, you cooked outside and you had staff outside. That we took down and modernized it about 4 years ago, actually. So now as we go up, we'll go towards the ruins of pulping and the channels that carried the pulped coffee down to the floating ponds, which we can look at from above. I should mention here also that we really are in the upper reaches of the Hope Watershed, which supplies water to the Mona Reservoir in Kingston. And just around the corner, you will see a tributary of the Hope River. So it actually starts up in this area. So it's very important for us to protect the vegetation cover in this area so that we can have a sustainable supply of water going to the Mona Reservoir.